Hello, welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot, and today I am doing something I have not done before. I am going to go through my tarot and oracle collection, but it's going to be separated out into a couple of different videos. This video is looking at my oracle deck collection and specifically those decks that I have not worked with at all in 2021. So I now have about 43, I think it was, oracle decks, and they didn't all get used this year. So I wanted to have a look at what I've got, what I didn't use, and whether I need to hang on to those decks or let them go. So I'd love to hear in the comments below what you think. I certainly find as I watch videos like this, I kind of comment as I'm going along, like, don't get rid of that one, or yes, I love that too. And I would love to see your comments as well. So this little deck, inspired by Frida by Akal Pratam, did not get used at all this year. So it's a simple little mini deck, and it has images of Frida Kahlo. They're not her paintings, they're just sort of inspired by her paintings and portraits of her. And then on the back are these little affirmations. So yeah, I didn't use this at all this year, and to be honest, I think if it was gone from my collection, I don't think I'd miss it, but it has beautiful cardstock. I love the patterns and colours, and obviously I like Frida Kahlo or I wouldn't have bought it, so it doesn't take up much space. I think I'm going to keep this one. Another tiny little deck that I didn't use at all this year is Under the Roses Lenormand. So this is a little US Games Lenormand deck, and it is my only Lenormand deck. I do quite like the style of it and the colours. It has a moody quality, which maybe makes the cards feel a little darker, and maybe Lenormand should feel a bit more neutral. I'm not sure, but this is my only Lenormand deck. So until such times as I ever get another one, I will hang on to this one. I did a course on reading with Lenormand last year, or was it the year before? So I did some study, and I enjoyed learning about the system, but it hasn't really caught on with me. But anyway, I'll hang on to that one. Okay, other decks that I haven't used. In this bag is one of Benabel Wen's decks that she created and allowed you to print from Make Playing Cards. So I can never remember the exact name of it. It's I really can't remember the exact name of it. So this is a nice deck. It's something that I had printed on demand. So you just pay the printing cost that Benabel had made available. So it's not something I could or would sell on, or it's not boxed or anything, so it's not something I could give to a charity shop or anything. I don't really use it. I haven't used it much. I've used it a few times, but again, it's not taking up much space, so I'll just hang on to it, and it might find a place in my practice sooner or later. Okay, what's next? The Divine Feminine Oracle. So this is by Megan Watterson, who wrote the Mary Magdalene Revealed book, which I read and loved. And the artwork here is by Lisbeth Cheever Gessman. This is a deck that I like the concept of the deck, and I don't really like the artwork. And I have toyed with getting rid of this quite a few times. But the last time I did, I tell you, I bought this deck in Kildare, which is the town in Ireland where Bridget was honoured. And so there are sites dedicated to the goddess Bridget, and there are also sites associated with Saint Bridget. Now, I bought this in a little shop in Kildare, and the last time I was trying to decide whether to get rid of the deck or not, I pulled this card. So I decided to keep it because it seemed like, getting Bridget was like reminding me why I had bought the deck in the first place. But I don't enjoy the art in this deck. Maybe it's just a personal taste thing, but all of the figures, they're kind of bathed in light in a way that makes them seem very white, even when the women themselves are not white, if that makes sense, which just doesn't sit well with me. And there's a kind of a blurry quality to their faces from that too that I don't really like. So it's just personal taste. I mean, there are a number of photo collage kind of decks that I've had, or kind of have this sort of magical feel to the kind of washed out artwork and so on. I'm thinking of things like the Moonshine Tarot, which I hadn't passed on. I do quite like that image of Bridget though. But yes, the book is nice, the messages are nice, the stories of these real life figures and goddesses are really good to read. So there's I don't know. I really just don't know about this deck. I didn't use it because I don't really like looking at it. I don't really like the art. It's not they're not cards that I would leave sitting out. But the book is quite good, so I don't know. I have a few goddess deck themed decks as well, so I'm going to put this in the I don't know corner. Again, it's been in the I don't know corner quite a lot. Another deck that I didn't use this year is Manifesting Your Greatness Oracle deck by Amy Chase. Now, this is definitely going nowhere. I absolutely love this deck and I cannot believe I didn't use it at all year, because it's just so cute. So those are the backs. And I love the blue metallic edging. It's so cool. The backs are so weird. It's just, so the art style is really varied. As you can see, it's like full color, right to the border, you know, to the edges, no borders. And then we have keywords on it like visualize abundance, one small change, continue, focus on one thing at a time, call upon angels, ask for help. This is a brilliant deck for like, if there's something that you're trying to do, like say you were working on a novel, and you wanted something to kind of motivate you to keep going on the novel, or, you know, whatever the project is that you were doing. This is a brilliant deck for that sort of thing. So maybe I just haven't had the thing that I needed this for happening this year. But this is one of my fave Oracle decks, so I'm definitely not getting rid of that at all. So the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck. Now the funny thing with this deck is that I had bought this for a friend, and the same Christmas someone else, I think it was a different friend, bought it for me. So it's a round deck. I'm sure you've seen this before. It's got those weird pixelated diamond backs, which are not great. Okay, so archetype decks is something that I need to think about because there's a few of them in this pile. So we have some really interesting concepts in this, locations, people, sort of feelings and so on. When I first got this deck that Christmas, it was a couple of years ago, I actually read the guidebook in full, which I don't often do. I read the whole guidebook before I even shuffled the deck. And I really liked the guidebook. I liked the meanings that are given in the guidebook, and I liked the sort of hints for extra study, like pieces of art to look at or poetry to read or things like that in the margins. I think it's a great guidebook by Kim Kranz. I don't think I really like the art very much. I don't have any other Wild Unknown decks. I know this doesn't really look a lot like the other Wild Unknown decks. I mean, that card maybe more so, but the little photo, the little collage elements are less like the other Wild Unknown decks. And I think maybe the collage bits are the things I don't like as much. It's quite, I mean, it feels like quite a powerful deck, but it's not very pretty. And I mean, pretty's not always what you're looking for, is it? But I don't really feel called to use it that often. I keep thinking I should try to use it for a while and then see if it really works. I pulled some cards last year from it. They didn't really resonate for me. So this year I just never went near it. And yeah, I think it might be time to move that one on. I might just keep it in the maybe box, and if maybe somebody's looking for it to trade or something at some point, I might see what happens with it. It's quite heavy, so, you know, to post it, it's going to be expensive. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think this one's going to go. Okay, so another one I didn't use this year was the Earth Power Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. Now, this is an odd little deck. This is one I bought in a shop. I have this thing sometimes when I visit like an esoteric shop. I want to buy something just to support the shop. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. And this deck I had picked up because I'd never seen it before. It features kind of powerful places from around the world. And as a divinatory deck, it's, I don't know, kind of weird. The messages in the book, it kind of, in the guidebook, it describes what would happen if you visited that place, what that place is like to visit, what you might see there, that sort of thing. It's more so than a divinatory message. There are these little messages on the cards though. Obviously Glastonbury Tor is one of the places I visited this year in 2021, so that's really nice to see. Many of these are places that most of us have never been. I've been there, I'm very lucky to say. And maybe places that we'll never go. And it's nice to sort of have a thing to connect in with the energy of those places. Ancient places is something that I find really fascinating. I've actually been there too. If I could plan every holiday I go on round, like seeing an amazing ancient site or temple or, you know, that I would. Cathedral of Notre Dame, I've been there too. Delphi, I've been there too. That's really nice. My favourite place, I think when I used this card deck, the once or twice I've ever pulled a card from it, I got the my favourite place card, and there's my backyard card. So for a lot of us for the last 2 years, my backyard's been the only sacred place we've been able to visit, hey? Yeah, this is a weird deck. An unusual deck. I don't mean to be insulting by saying it's a weird deck. It's I'm going to keep it because I like reading about those places, even if I don't really read with it very much. The Chakra Wisdom Oracle cards by Tori Hartman. This is not a deck I would get rid of at all. This Chakra Wisdom Oracle is a really powerful system. There's a workbook that goes with it as well. Now you can see here I have sorted this for some reason the last time I was looking at it. I've sorted it into the chakra colours. So there's lots of different ways you can work with this, and the workbook that I also have takes you through from the base chakra upwards, all the different chakras and all the different challenges of that are represented by each card. So the illustrations are by Gretchen Reich Baskin, but the concept is from Tori Hartman. And I quite like, the art has a kind of a naive quality to it, which I quite enjoy. They illustrate these stories that Tori Hartman received in a kind of spiritual way. I can't remember the full details of it, it's a while since I read the guidebook, but these sort of angelic messages, or these messages of these stories, she has then linked up to the different chakras, which is kind of interesting because the stories, I think, work as meditative tools or learning tools without the chakra association, but the chakra association is interesting. And yeah, I quite like this little deck. It is a tough one. It's not, even though the pictures look like fairy tale storybooks for kids, like, this is not a deck that is an easy one to work with. It is like, here's your shadow, here's your stuff you've got to deal with. In almost every single card, there are real challenges in it. This was also bought for me by a very, very dear friend. So it has a special place in my collection, and even though I didn't touch it at all this year, it's a deck that I will use again. So it's staying. Okay, I mean, most of these are probably staying. I mean, this is not really so much a purge videos. It's just sort of a review of all the things I didn't use this year. Right, this is an interesting one. Caroline Miss Archetype cards. This was passed on to me by a friend who'd had it for ages and had sort of come to the end of her time working with it and thought she'd pass it on to me because I like collecting decks, which was exactly the kind of thought people should have. Anyway, I haven't used this at all. I haven't pulled one single card from it. I have no idea what to do with it, to be honest. So each card has an archetype on it. And I suppose a little bit like the Chakra Wisdom Oracle cards, they feel like they're for quite deep psychological work. Some light attributes and shadow attributes about each archetype. So yes, I have no idea if this is one that I will do much with or hang on to in the long term. But I've only had it in my collection for a couple of months and I literally have pulled one card from it really. So it's not, I don't think I'm ready to put it in the purge pile just yet, but it's, if you've got this deck, if you work with it, I'd love to hear how you use it because it's not one, I'm not really sure how to use it. Wings of Wisdom. Oh, Wings of Wisdom by Alana Fairchild. This deck is illustrated by Lindy Longhurst. And the reason I bought this deck is because it was illustrated by Lindy Longhurst. I really, really dislike these cards intensely. It's just like, I need to do something with this and I haven't. I don't like the length of the cards. They're really long. I love Lindy Longhurst's illustrations. They are so cute. I love her art style. I have one of her art prints that I bought from her at a market in Australia when she had a stall with all of her stuff for sale. I wish I'd bought more of her art when I was there because little did I know I wasn't going to get back to that market again anytime soon. But like, I love the art. It's gorgeous. But I have never used this deck. I don't like the way the front of the cards have the bird. Then they have keywords, then they have an affirmation, and then there's this ton of text on the back. And then there's a guidebook that has different information in it, like extra information. It's just too much to read for every card. And I guess I don't, as I'm sure if you've watched this channel before, you maybe be aware I don't really work with animal decks. And this is really an animal deck. And I'm not sure about the magical things like the griffin in the middle of like regular birds, like canaries and ladybirds? Ladybird a bird? Anyway. So yeah. I can't bring myself to get rid of this deck because I love Lindy Longhurst's art. And I have had many thoughts about how I might trim it, reback it, and do something with it. But every picture is a different size. So it's not possible to trim it down to the art without losing some of the art because some pictures are short and some are long. So it's not the art or even the messages of this deck that is the problem. It is the graphic design of this deck that is the problem, like the way it's all been put together. So Wings of Wisdom, as a little collection of Lindy Longhurst's art, I'm hanging on to it. But if another year goes by without me having modded it or used it at all, I think I probably should get rid of it at some stage. The Goddess Oracle. Now, where's my other... There's another Goddess deck that I have that I did use this year a little bit. I had this great idea at the start of the year that I was in January, that I was going to pull a goddess for every month. And each month I was going to research the goddess and really dive deep into like reading a book about that goddess. And I could have used this deck for that, for one a month. But in the end, as I sort of hit February and I was getting deep into my study of the Irish language and working with Bridget, I sort of didn't want to be taken away from that, diving into the Celtic decks that I'd bought and so on, by pulling cards of goddesses from other cultures that I wasn't really looking into at that time. So I didn't use this at all during the course of the year. When I have used this deck before, Blood Eyewith, there was a period of time where Blood Eyewith came up for me again and again. Not a card I wanted to see. But yeah, gorgeous. The art in this is just amazing. So the illustrator is Fran Janto. And this is a really popular goddess deck. As you can see, if you are familiar with this deck, I've trimmed mine. The cards were much bigger. They had a lot of white border all around the images, and they're far nicer like this. And I think it was Dawn Michelle over at Boho Tarot who had done this mod, and I just copied her. But yes, I mean, I haven't used it this year, but I will use it again. And with all the time and effort I put into the mod, I'm not going to get rid of it. You can see like the tops of the cards aren't exactly even. But like, I don't care. And it's got a great guidebook. Each of the goddesses has like a meditation, and somebody has recorded all the meditations from that deck on YouTube. So if you want to just listen to the meditation instead of having to read it, that's there online, which is really cool. Although it's probably like a copyright infringement. But anyway, you could record them for yourself on your audio record on your phone and listen to them back. That would be a better way to do it, wouldn't it? Okay, so this is the Mythic Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno, and I have one other Tony Carmine Salerno deck as well, which I will also look at after this one. So I bought this last year after I'd read the Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson. This deck doesn't really have anything to do with that. So they don't really go very well together. So just to show you what the cards used to look like, so I trimmed this deck, so it used to look more like that, and then I decided to trim it down. I didn't round the corners because of the way the back design is with that gold border. I thought I'd have to take it inside the gold border if I was going to trim off the corners. So I left it with square edges, which is a bit unpleasant to hold. And then I edged it with this like magenta marker to try to kind of match the back or the box. So I think it tones in fairly well. Oh, you can see that card. I've sort of cut it really badly in the corner. Oops. Tony Carmine Salerno decks are quite abstract. The pictures are quite abstract, and the messages in them are quite on the spiritual side. This is not a deck that has like super helpful practical guidance for your day. You know, very unlike the Manifesting Your Greatness Oracle. It's like the opposite of that. And yeah, I haven't felt called to want to work with it, and I honestly don't think I'll buy any more Tony Carmine Salerno decks, and I hate that there's random sideways cards in it. But I think I'll keep it because I worked with it a little in 2020, and I think I've got a bit more scope to work with it in future. So that Magdalene Oracle I'm going to hang on to for now. This other one that I haven't trimmed is the Gaia Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. This is the very first Oracle deck I ever got, so I'm obviously not going to get rid of it. I keep meaning to do a proper review of this deck. Again, the art is lovely, but kind of abstract. The images are very similar to each other in some places. That's such a pretty one. I love that one. So this is a deck I've used a lot because it was my very first Oracle deck, so I had it when I didn't have any others. Yeah, I have a mixed feelings about this deck. There's things I like, there's things I don't like about it, but it was my first Oracle, so I'm not going to get rid of it either. It'll just have to take up some space. Okay, another two that maybe go together are the Keepers of the Light Oracle and the Angels and Ancestors Oracle by Kyle Gray, neither of which have got an outing this year at all. These are very similar in terms of their setup. In some ways, the graphic design of them is a bit different. The art in both is by Lily Moses. I really like the art. I'd love to see more stuff by Lily Moses, actually, because I really like her art. All the beings and deities and star people that are depicted in this deck, they're not all deities and beings that I could imagine working with directly, but in terms of it being an Oracle deck and the messages on a given card and the art on the cards, they're really nice. So while there's something about this type of deck that seems to like sort of draw from everywhere, and I don't always sit hugely comfortably with that, which I'm finding hard to explain. But initially I thought I wouldn't like that deck at all, but when I started pulling cards from it, I really did like it. So it has stayed around. This deck has absolutely gorgeous art. I mean, it's the same artist, but I think the art is up a level in terms of how gorgeous it is. And yes, I haven't worked with it at all this year, but it's really beautiful. So it's going to stay for now. So those are the two Kyle Gray decks that I have that I haven't used at all. And then, sorry, this has taken way longer than I expected. If you're still watching, thank you. Okay, so another oracle I didn't use this year, the Psychic Tarot of the Heart by John Holland. Yeah, I haven't felt the need or desire to read with this at all this year. But when I did first get this deck, which I think was maybe 2 years ago, I did find it gave really great, direct, straightforward readings. So I'm going to hang on to it. I liked it as a deck for relationship readings. Now, I had got another deck that I thought could replace it, but I'm still not sure about it. So anyway, that is staying. The Elemental Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. I have filmed a full review of this and not posted it yet. I have some very significant problems with this deck. Some of the art is beautiful, but some of the concepts and how it's been executed do not work for me. So I haven't posted that review yet, and I haven't used this at all. I'm going to have to do something with this deck, like take out the cards that I like and just get rid of the rest of it, or something, and just use it for art projects, because I don't think I'd be able to read with this deck. And I'll not go into all the reasons why now, but and maybe one day I'll post the review. It's when you're not... Anyway, okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. This is going in the no pile. The Queen of the Moon Oracle deck. This is another Stacey DeMarco deck, and the art in this is also like in the other one. The artist's name is not on the box, but she is Kisma, I think, is it? No, Kinga. Kinga Britschke. Her name really should be on the box, shouldn't it? The Queen of the Moon Oracle, I've edged mine in gold. The art is beautiful. This deck has Kinga Britschke's beautiful art without some of the problems that I had with the other deck. So while I haven't used it this year, it is, oh, it's breathtaking. I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. So it's staying, and I might remember to use it at some point. Oh yeah, so this is the other Kyle Gray deck. The Angel Guide Oracle. So I just recently got this in a trade, like as in maybe a week or two ago. So it's an angel deck. It's got really nice art style by Jennifer Hawkyard, kind of really modern. It reminds me a little of kind of modern stained glass windows, that kind of vibe. And I like it as a depiction of angels that's a bit more modern, a bit more diverse. So yeah, I haven't pulled any cards from it. It's brand new. So not just that I haven't worked with it this year, I haven't worked with it at all. So that's staying. Another one that really surprised me when I realized I hadn't worked with it this year at all is the Awakened Soul Oracle by Ethany. This is just a gorgeous deck. And listen, oh, beautiful cardstock. These cards are huge. As you can see, like they're nearly the size of my hand. Those are the backs with Ethany's B on them. And the art on this one is by Danielle Mulligan. And I love it. It's kind of cartoonish, but look at that family. Gorgeous. It's really, really, really nice. And when I did use this, when I got it first last year, I loved it and used it loads. So I don't know how. I mean, I literally must have just forgot I had it or something. I don't know how I didn't get to use it this year, but it's this problem of having too many decks, which is why I really should be getting rid of more. The Mythic Oracle. There's only a couple left. I bought this to use alongside the Mythic Tarot. And surprise, surprise, when we go through my tarots that I haven't used this year, the Mythic Tarot is in there too. So you can see I've edged it in bronze. It has a really cheap, well, feels cheap, really bendy cardstock. I mean, like, it's, yeah, it's kind of nasty as far as cardstock goes. And the back design I'm not a fan of. But to make it a bit nicer, I edged it when I got it. So as you can see, the art in this I do really quite like. The artwork's by Michelle Lee Phelan. So they're pretty nice illustrations of these Greek gods and goddesses. I think increasingly, as I said earlier, I spent a lot of time this year working with the Celtic pantheon, and I mean, I have only scratched the surface of reading the stories and getting to know the deities and energies from my own cultural heritage, like my own background. So I think the Mythic Oracle and also the Mythic Tarot, when we come to it, have kind of just forgotten about, because, you know, to learn another pantheon and, you know, learn about them, like the stories of Greek mythology are really interesting. I did read the book Mythos by Stephen Fry last year when I was, you know, starting to dip a toe into the Greek pantheon. So I know some of the stories, but yeah. You know what I'm going to say by now, don't you? I'm going to keep it, even though I haven't really used it. I like the wee mod I did with the edging on that. One of these days, I'll use that with the Mythic Tarot. The Celtic Tree Oracle. So this is my only rune-based deck. And as a result, I will be keeping this one too, even though I haven't used it at all. It's kind of an unnecessarily elaborate box and kind of all this stuff that came with it. But the little cards, as you can see, are tiny. I like the style of them. You know, they're very focused on the tree, and the art around it, you know, evokes the tree. I like that they have the Irish word on them. So I'm starting to learn how to say these words. I've been studying Irish this year. I'm not sure what I think about Ogham as a divinatory system. I've read mixed things about how old the use of the Oghams for divination really is. Like, you know, some conflicting things on to whether it is an ancient art or whether it's one of those things that has been created more recently. And I do need to look into that a bit more. But Ogham certainly was used as an alphabet for communication. And, you know, there are Ogham stones around and about, scattered in random fields that I have on occasion gone to find and have a look at. So yes, learning the Ogham and learning more about the trees of, there's hazel, the trees of Ireland is something that I do definitely want to do. It's kind of on the list. Like I have an idea in my head for a project that involves me finding out about all the trees that are literally around where I live, and getting to know more about what they are, and like ones that are growing in gardens and parks and wild bushland and stuff. And so it feeds into something I'm interested in, and I just haven't really had a chance to go into it properly yet. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. But yes, it's this little notebook for making readings in, and this very elaborate way of reading that uses all the Oghams and so on, and this nice little hardback book with the meanings. So I don't think I'll ever get another Ogham deck. This is a nice one, Liz and Colin Murray, so I'll hang on to that, and I might not use it for divinatory purposes, but I might use it to, you know, for study. And that brings us to the last deck, which you can see was sort of wrapped up in paper because I don't have a box for it. This is the Celtic Tarot from Fate of the Norns, and it's not a tarot really. It's made by a company that made card-based games, but it features all these figures from Irish and other Celtic, like Welsh and so on, mythology and history. And the art's really lovely. Again, it reminds me a little bit of stained glass windows or illustrated manuscripts or Celtic fairy tale books. Like, it has that sort of feel to it. Some figures that we know well, like the Morrigan, and Lugh and so on, Manana MacLear, the God of the Sea, Nuada, Silverhand, Ogma. We're just speaking of Ogums, and you can see there's Ogums on these cards. Bowen, you know, Bridget. So Anya, but I have no idea what to do with this deck, how to use it, what the system is. There's no book. The website doesn't tell you how to use it either. So again, I think this might be something I use more for when I'm looking into a particular figure from history or from mythology, as a little bit of a focal visual point or something like that, or to maybe pick a card at random to give me a focus on what to look into next or something like that. But it is really lovely, and this was gifted to me this year, so I very much appreciate that. So at the end of all those decks that I haven't used, it really has reminded me of all the treasures that I've got, and there's only really 3 that I'm fairly sure I want to move on in some way or another. So anyway, if you've watched all this time, which of those decks do you think I really need to prioritize using in 2022? Have you any favorites there, or any that you would have got rid of? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments, and I'll be back soon with another deck, another video of my Oracle deck collection, the ones I actually did use this year. Bye.